In Judaism, our baby boys start drinking alcohol at 8 days old when we circumcise them, which is probably not accepted so much in the Western world, but has worked for the Jews for thousands of years.
Hello, hello. We are welcoming Aliya. Aliya, thanks so much for joining. How are you doing today?
Thanks so much for having me. I am great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. Aliya, the way this will work basically is me and my listeners and viewers, we are not traveling for the picture. We are traveling to explore the culture and the destination. So, your task is very simple today. You need to make us want to come to Israel. Simple as that.
Okay, I can do that.
You can do that. Okay, but before we start talking about Israel, how about we hear something about you? Because again, the similarity with you and most of my guests is I have never met you. And this is one of the reasons I'm so excited to do this episode because I'm meeting new people and I'm learning new stories. I love stories. So I would like to hear as well, my listeners and viewers, we would like to hear your story. Can you please share it with us?
Okay, so my name's Aliya. I was born and raised in California, but immigrated to Israel 10 years ago, actually this week.
Oh, happy anniversary.
I know, amazing. I love to travel, and so Israel is, of course, a great place to be able to travel to Europe and all over the world from. Up until COVID, I taught tourists cooking from all over the world. So I taught them Israeli and Middle Eastern cuisine. So it was a fantastic way to meet people who are coming to the country and talk to them about their experiences and what they were doing and give them recommendations. Other than that, I live in Tel Aviv. I have one baby. And yeah, what else is there to know?
So, why did you pick Israel? It's very curious for me.
Hmm. So I'm Jewish, and as a Jew, we there's a concept called like right of return. So if you have one grandparent that is Jewish, you can have automatic citizenship and full rights and an automatic passport. And there's even some organizations who will give you money and pay for your plane ticket to come. So it's based off the Nuremberg laws of who is the Jew that was set after the Holocaust to provide a safe home for Jews who are fleeing or need refuge no matter what. And that is based even if you're just partially Jewish, if you can be discriminated against for being a Jew, you can immigrate to Israel with no questions asked. So that's the long story. That's how I could come to Israel. So a lot of young Jews do come. They come to join the army and help protect the state, which I did. Or they come to sit on the beach or learn Hebrew or have a different perspective in life and, have a chance to be able to move to another part of the world and have an entirely different experience than their own. And a lot of them don't stay, and that's fine. So I came to be in the army, have a different experience. I went back to the States. Then I came here with a fresh mind that the Middle East is not America with an accent, and I needed
Hmm.
to approach it in a different way.
In my life so far, I have met only one family from Israel. I was working in Greece and they went for holiday there. And there was a girl, they had a daughter, the family had a daughter, and she was also in the army. So is this a mandatory thing? Like you have to do that?
Yeah, it's a compulsory draft. So women serve for 2 years and men serve for a little less than three now.
Okay, okay. And before we go to Israel in depth, tell me about the cooking classes. What's about this?
Oh, yes. So
Oh,
I started my business, citrus and salt cooking, like 3 years ago. And I did it because I love to meet people, I love to hear their stories, and I love cooking. And I realized that there wasn't a lot of options in English for people who came here to have these culinary experiences. So I would take them on tours of the local market and I would teach classes going over some of the favorite dishes here like falafel and pita bread and hummus.
and when did you start that?
Like I started doing it pretty actively about 3 years ago
Oh wow.
and it really was so successful. It was flourishing. I had 4 or 5 classes a week. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of people from every corner of the world, from Japan to Iceland to Australia to Uruguay. And just being able to hear everybody's stories and help unite people over a table is really, really beautiful. So, since we don't have tourists anymore, I don't do it, but I'm hoping to start again one day.
I'm crossing my fingers to be soon. I'm really
Yeah,
hoping that.
you'll come learn some hummus.
Yeah, I love hummus to be fair. And
You probably never actually had it.
Okay, fair point. So I would say you have different types of hummus.
Yeah, no, there definitely are. But if you live in the UK, you probably have a lot of good international food there.
Yeah, well, the thing is with UK is that I don't see that they have an a set cuisine. They say like, okay, what's the English food? When it comes to English food, I imagine fish and chips and Yorkshire
Mm-hmm.
pudding, which is not such a big thing. But what the good thing, especially in London, is that there is a lot of international stuff here that you can get. That's why I get the Bulgarian cheese and Bulgarian yogurt because they are delicious.
Oh, we have that here too.
What?
Bulgarian cheese.
Oh, so what do you think about it?
Oh, it's fantastic.
It
But
is, isn't it?
it's like it's a little similar to feta, of course, but that's one of the most popular cheese here.
Wait, the feta or the Bulgarian cheese is one of the most popular cheese.
The Bulgarian.
Whoa. Is it that in Tel Aviv or in
And all
Israel?
over Israel, yeah. Gvinat
Interesting.
Bulgarit.
So
I
are
mean,
there
I don't know if
many
it's the same as you, but that's what we call it.
how do you call it?
Yeah. In Hebrew, it's Gvinat Bulgarit, which is just translation to Bulgarian
Bulgarian
cheese.
cheese. I see. So that's very, very interesting. Are there many Bulgarians in Israel living?
I have no idea. I'm sure there are. A lot of Jews came from that area.
Okay.
Now I want
Okay.
to fact check myself.
To be it's good to check this fact. To be fair, I'm not sure how many uh, Jewish people there are in Bulgaria, or there were. All I know is that in Bulgaria was protecting them in Second World War. That's all I know about Bulgaria and Jews. Okay, since you are so much into food and we started talking about hummus, let's start with the food as well. Um, and probably that's going to be the easiest subject for you, the most passionate subject. What can we eat, and what is the food culture in general in Israel?
The food culture. So the food culture is very, very bright and colorful. We're very, very into breakfast. So if you come here for breakfast, you can expect, if you go to the right place, of course, a beautiful spread. So we don't just have a piece of toast. You can get eggs and all these different salads and olives and tuna and cheeses and multiple drinks and breads. And it's just a gorgeous spread that's in restaurants, and you have it even better in hotels. And then the main meal is lunchtime, and then people have a light dinner. But people are very into eating, very into cafe culture. And one of the things that I really love the most is that Israeli food is not just the food found in the Middle East, but rather a melting pot of all the different cultures that have come from around the world. So we have immigrants from Ethiopia, Yemen, Morocco, um, Bulgaria, South America, and you can find all of these food traditions here. So it really makes up this beautiful tapestry of flavors. But if you want more traditional Israeli food, then a lot of times people will think of the food that comes from North Africa and the Middle East, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and also the food that we share with the Palestinians.
Okay, so you're saying that if I go to have breakfast somewhere, I will not have I will not have just one plate of food. They will just fill the table with different plates. And
Yeah, and we really like vegetables here. People are obsessed with fruits and vegetables, so it's a very healthy culture.
okay, so in general, people are eating healthy there.
Yeah.
All right. I remember there was a restaurant I went to who was serving, but I think the food was from Lebanon. I don't know. And the guy was proud that they were producing hummus. It was some sort of a, I think, don't quote me on that. I think it was some sort of a vegetarian type of hummus, like producing. Like, Anyway, I don't know. Let's forget about this. Anyway, so what is the Israeli typical type of dish? Like
Um,
I tell you a dish and then you say, okay, that's definitely Israel.
well, one that's become really popular around the world is called shakshuka, which is basically a poached egg dish from North Africa, Tunisia, more specifically. So it's poached eggs on like a rich tomato sauce.
So poached egg and tomato sauce on the top.
Tomato sauce underneath. So people eat it with different toppings and with bread. It's very good.
How do you call this?
It's called shakshuka.
Shakshuka.
Yeah.
That is so funny. I have heard this expression in Bulgaria. There was even a song. Uh, yeah, I'm not gonna sing it because it's
It
not
would
one of
be
the best
very nice
songs.
if you sang it.
uh, no, it's okay. Okay, I was singing it. It goes like that. Shakshuka, Junyara tuka.
Hmm.
It's a very unpopular song, but that's how I heard about shakshuka, and I was like, I thought they invented this word, but and then duner means kebab basically,
Yeah.
so makes no sense in general. But that's very interesting. Shakshuka. Okay, perfect. Can you recommend some places to eat in then in Israel?
So people really love in Tel Aviv a place called Hakosem, which means the magician, and they have really popular like falafel and hummus. And in Jerusalem, I always like to recommend people to go to Azura, which is an Iraqi restaurant, which has been around for many decades. And the chef Yotam Atalengi, who's an Israeli chef, actually highlighted in his book Jerusalem. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful restaurant. And in true Israeli fashion, it's super not fancy. There's gigantic pots of food, and you just kind of go sit out there really low key and order delicious plates. So those two I really, really like.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the recommendations. And speaking of Iraqi, let's talk about the drinks, shall we?
Oh, Arak?
What's that?
Oh, Iraqi. Okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Drinks.
Is that a drink that
Arak is like our version of Uzo. I was like, maybe
exactly?
he's making some sort of connection.
No, well, in Bulgaria we call it rakia. That's why I made the connection.
So I have a theory that Arak actually, you don't get hangovers from it, and it gives you a lot of energy, and then you wake up the next morning feeling amazing.
What?
Yeah.
How is this possible?
Okay, this is something I tested before I got pregnant, but it works.
How many times you tested it?
A couple.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
No,
So,
it's a very popular drink here, arak, and a lot of times in restaurants, they'll just start passing around shots for free.
huh. I'm
Arak is
starting
one
to
of
like
those.
I'm starting to like Israel more and more. So, how strong is this?
The alcohol,
Yes.
very strong. Yeah.
Like 40?
Listen, I have no idea. I'm not a big drinker, but it's like whatever you say it is,
I see. Okay,
hard alcohol,
what's the flavor?
like anise.
Oh, like proper uzu. Okay, I see.
Mm, yeah.
Ah, and you don't get hangover? Ah, that's bizarre. Okay,
No, seriously, I'm telling you.
you're strange. Is that just your theory, or there are other
No,
people who can
I'm
back it
starting
up?
to make a thing.
Maybe you can organize when you organize food trips. When you used to do that, did you give them drinks as well?
Yeah, a lot of times I'd pass out arak, or they would give them arak in the shuk, and there's also a big beer culture here and a very, very nice wine culture and lots of wineries. So they're into their alcohol. Actually, our in Judaism, our baby boys start drinking alcohol at 8 days old when we circumcise them. So we have a big connection to
When it's
these
8.
things.
But wait, okay, so when it's
8 days
8, you
old.
but when it's 8, you just give them a bit, or from 8 you just start drinking.
So in Jewish tradition, we circumcise baby boys at 8 days old. So it's really only a little bit of like some cotton that they suck on with the wine to help calm them.
I see. Yeah,
which is probably not accepted so much in the Western world, but has worked for the Jews for thousands of years.
yeah. Sometimes we do that with people do that with Bulgarian babies. Give them some alcohol, like calm down. Like, maybe that's why
Oh,
we like to
well,
drink.
that's just because they're tired.
Who? The babies or
Parents.
the parents?
Parents.
Could be. Yeah, it's not a tradition. Definitely, it's not a tradition in Bulgaria. They just choose to do that. Okay, perfect. What about things to see in Israel?
So there's, of course, like the standard ones that a lot of tourists come for, which is the beach. There's the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place on earth, and the water is so salty in the sea that you actually just float.
You
You
don't
can just lie
sink?
there and read a newspaper.
Have you
Um,
done that?
I have, yeah. You read mud on yourself. It's actually prescribed by doctors against psoriasis, the environment there.
From the sea.
Yeah, it's
All
very
right.
good for your skin. There's Jerusalem, which is my favorite. And there, the place to go is the Old City. So then there's the Armenian quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Christian quarter, and the Muslim quarter. So it's hugely important to the three main monotheistic religions in the world: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. And
Hmm.
there we each have a shrine to go to,
A what?
um,
What is this?
like a shrine. So like the holiest place for Jews is just our temples were destroyed, which were on the Temple Mount, but there's a remainder outer wall there which people pray to, and they put little notes and wishes that they want God to hear in between the stones.
Yeah, this wall is
And
quite famous, isn't it?
yeah. And then there's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and then there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount, or on the, um, that's the Jewish term for it. I don't know what it's called. You can't, all of these things, the semantics and how you call them are very important because it's so contentious, right? So how you name things is very crucial.
Okay. So in Israel, is it Tel Aviv and Jerusalem that you need to visit in
For
general?
sure. So that's the basics, right? And then the Dead Sea. Some people go down to Eilat, which is where the Red Sea is. And then sometimes you can see Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia from there. And there's corals and snorkeling and lots of clubs and dolphins. And then in the north, which I also love, it's very green. There's wineries, there's lots of different communities there. And there's a more famous town of Haifa where the Baha'i people have a very holy place. There's Tzfat, which I really like. It's this ancient Kabbalistic city which has winding stone alleyways and lots of art, and a lot of religious Jews go there. And also a lot of Jews from like northern India have moved there. So the ethnic makeup is really, really interesting. And other than that, there's the Golan Heights. So I just went cherry picking there a couple of weeks ago. There's beautiful orchards. And there's the Kinneret, otherwise known as the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus supposedly walked on water.
Where
So
where was that?
the Galilee, the Sea of Galilee,
I- where is that exactly?
it's in
Oh,
northern Israel near
okay.
Tiberias.
Okay.
So a lot of the places that you go, you're actually reliving history, whether it's Jewish history or Christian history. You can go to places like Nazareth, um, or Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank, and kind of walk in the footsteps of Jesus. So there's a lot of Christian tourism as well.
Hmm. Is that a famous, let's say, walking tour to do the Jesus steps?
Oh yeah.
I can imagine.
You see in the old city, people go through the Via de Rosa where Jesus walked, and they're carrying crosses, and it's a very profound
What,
moment for
they
them.
do the walk with the cross as well?
Sometimes,
Oh wow,
if you're gonna
so
do it
interesting.
right.
Oh well, okay, okay, let's do that. Um, all right, that's very interesting. So let's dive a bit more in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem because I would assume. Well, to be fair, there are so many people, so many things to see, and they're all over Israel, aren't they?
But Israel's a very tiny country, so on a good day, Tel Aviv to Jerusalem is only 40 minutes by car,
Oh,
and now we have a direct train, which is 28 minutes.
wow. Okay,
People think it's far, but it's not.
so you say if I go there for 5 6 days, I can visit and do everything.
Yeah. So listen, a lot of people from Europe, Germany, come for a weekend and just spend it on the beaches in Tel Aviv eating shakshuka, right? So it really
Mm-hmm.
depends what kind of cultural experience you want. You can totally hit the landmarks and the famous spots in 5 days, no problem.
Hmm.
But, I'd really recommend to like hang out a little bit and just do nothing and walk around. That's how I like to tour countries.
I see. I see.
Yeah, because people are very friendly. You'll just sort of scoop you up and you'll make new friends and go to their parents' house for the Sabbath meal.
Okay, so people will very welcoming. They're gonna invite me in in their homes.
Yeah, and it's very safe too. So, hitchhiking is still a thing here.
Okay, that's good to know.
A
So
little bit less than it used to because there were political issues. But
okay, so hitchhiking wasn't safe because of political issues.
there used to be more hitchhiking. There is still some, but three boys were kidnapped and murdered.
Wow.
So, less. But back in the day, I used to hitchhike a lot, and people still do. Either way, it's much, much, much safer than America. And I, as a woman, can walk around Tel Aviv by myself at 3 a.m. Not that I'm really doing that because I'm a tired person, but it's totally fine. I mean, be conscious, but that's been my experience.
I see. Okay, I'm not very familiar with traditions in Israel and Jewish people as well. Can you just share a bit with that?
So the state is a Jewish state, but it's also a democracy. And also, many of the people living here are not Jewish, right? So 20% are Arabs, both Muslim and Christian. And then there's a people called the Druze, and there's Baha'i, and a lot of different people. But if we're talking about the majority, it's the Jews, let's
Hmm.
say. So a lot of the calendar and the customs and the things that make up the wider culture are based off of Jewish values and Jewish traditions. So we have Sabbath from Friday night to Saturday night. And so public transportation in most of the country stops and a lot of businesses close and it's very quiet. There's not a lot of cars and people spend it with family.
So that's Friday to Saturday, Friday night to Saturday night.
Yeah, our the Jewish day goes sunset to sunset.
Okay. So when tourists
So
come for the weekend, basically they have the Saturday for themselves.
they're basically very surprised when they can't get anywhere.
I see. And
Hmm.
then yeah, they even if they get somewhere, they don't have the shops or the restaurants open, right?
Yeah, so Tel Aviv's more secular, so there's definitely things open for them, but you would have to take a cab to it.
I see. Okay, so what do you do during the Sabbath?
Oh, it's actually so nice because you just rest and hang out with your friends or go to the beach. That's if you're secular, right? So if you're more religious, then you go to the synagogue, which is our house of prayer.
Yeah.
And more religious Jews don't use any electronics. They don't use their computer. They don't use air conditioning. They don't use their phones. They don't turn on lights. They don't drive a car. There's a lot of different restrictions in order to make sure there's no work. And it's very, very important.
So
And
basically, you live a life like pre-technology, pre-industrial revolution life in a way.
And so, a lot of new rules and interpretations have had to be made up with the onset of modern electricity
Hmm.
and all that. But, it's the onset of the Sabbath is marked by lighting candles, and you exit with another ceremony, which involves wine and a candle and sweet smelling spices and different prayers. So, things in Judaism, there's a lot of ritual around it. So
So
that's just the Sabbath every week, and then we have a bunch of other holidays.
So that's the Saturday evening you're talking about. There's a different ceremony when you end the Sabbath,
Yeah,
when you have
it's called
wine.
Havdalah. Yeah, but then you put the candle in the wine. But it separates. Havdalah is like lavdil is to separate. So it's in order to have it gives more intention and rest and family time. And this is probably a very secular interpretation of it because there's probably something, a different approach.
I see. Okay, okay. Well, that's very interesting to know. So, what would you advise people to do that travel to Israel but they come on the weekend? Is it just taxi, or do you have any other recommendations that they can do?
So there are shared taxis too that work in between cities a lot. So these are like yellow buses, and you can find them at the central bus station. So those go in between, and it's more than the regular bus, but not a lot. Um, and there's some ride sharing, but Uber isn't really here. So
Hmm.
it's best to be in the city. And then you just walk a lot.
But the attract. So you said some shops, a restaurant are not open. Are the attractions open?
So the old city you can always go to. The Dome of the Rock has very, very specific hours that change and close depending on the political climate. Dead Sea is always open. The beach is open.
I see. I see. Okay.
There's
Okay.
plenty to do. You just have to be aware of it. And then if you're coming to Israel, you also want to check the holiday schedule because there's some holidays where things are closed, some things are open, sometimes there's street parties, and sometimes we have multiple days when there's no public transportation because some of our holidays go on 8 days.
Whoa. So 8 days, nothing is opened?
No, there's like there's holidays where they're closed in the beginning, closed in the end, but in the middle they're open. Anyway, check your calendar before you go.
Okay. So what's the best place to check that? Public holidays in
Google?
Israel?
Yeah, that works.
I see. Okay. All right, we'll do that. All right. How about some stories? Can we hear some stories about you and maybe your tours or something you and Israel story that's all in one sentence?
Oh my gosh. Did I prep for this? I think one of the most wonderful places to go are the open food market because not only are you seeing this wonderful offering of all the fruit and vegetables and cheeses that the country produces, but it's also a great way to see the culture of all the different people who live here. So you see Arabs and Jews working side by side. You see in the restaurants families who came here from Yemen and Egypt and Iraq working and showing the tradition of their kind of ethnic background. And it's very, very fun. And I don't know if this is a story, but I highly recommend going to the open air markets.
So that clarifies, not clarifies, but classifies as a place to see. It
Oh
doesn't
yes,
go
but
as a
not on
story.
Saturday.
No, okay,
Yeah.
okay. On Saturday, just the beach.
Yeah.
Saturday is a beach time, but that doesn't rank as a story. We want to
What
hear
what kind of
at least
story?
one
You gotta
story.
lead. You gotta lead it here.
All right, no problem. Let's say people come for your food, and then you give them some drinks, and then they pass out, and then you're stuck with somebody who's on the street. Help! Help! Can you help me move him to the hotel, for example? Or you go to the airport to wait for people, but they decided not to come, and then you wait for a few hours, but then they miss. I
Oh
don't know,
my god.
something like that.
Um. Well, one time I did have a whole family, but the grandpa didn't really want to participate, so he took a nap on my couch.
Whoa,
And all of
wait.
my classes are in my house, so that's pretty cute. Um.
Oh.
Yeah.
So wait, how this works? So you pick the people and then you bring them to your place, and that's where the cooking starts, and then you eat in your place, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Ah,
Yeah, and I'm very serious about making everything from scratch. So they come into my home and they really get a home based experience. They see what an Israeli home looks like. We're cooking with basic utensils. You don't need a fancy kitchen with 15 ovens. You can do this at home. I'm going to show you. So everything is from scratch. And that's really the magic of the Israeli kitchen.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of a time when I was giving a walking tour here in London, and there was it wasn't a big family, like mother, father, and then there were two kids, and then I was telling stories, and then the kids were like, "Oh, really? And what about this?" And everything. But then I could see that the mother, it was a bit, leave me alone, and I was like, "Okay, what's happening? Talk to me." And it was in the middle of the tour or something, now like 60% of the tour. What's happening? Talk to me. It's like, you don't really tell nice things. So what do you mean? It's like all these things that you say, I could Google them myself. I say, you don't show us the English style here. Like, it's like, come on, I'm showing you where everyone would go, and I'm telling you stories that, you need to dig a lot to find them. No, no, no. Kids, are you happy? Yes, 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 we're happy. Okay, let's go. I mean, it's a bit
Did they
annoying when you.
leave?
No, they stayed because of the kids, but they're just walking behind and they just weren't interesting anymore, not listening. Uh,
Well, I mean, you can always Google things, but you have to know what to Google. And the point is that you're being led on a journey, right?
yeah, yeah,
Anything's available.
I know. That's what I said. But to what I saw there, it seems like she was a person that really easily find things to irritate her. She wasn't on the
Hmm.
positive side of life. I'm just like, whatever, whatever decide. And then I had planned more to show them, but then I reached one point, like, I don't know, like 95% of the tour. And I was like, and okay, let's end it here. She's like, okay, let's pay you. Do you have
I,
card
th-
machine? I was like, no, I don't have card machine. What is it? Yeah,
I think, yeah, if you go out trying to search for something positive, you'll find it, and then the opposite is true. I'm
exactly.
lucky that, people that come to me, not only are they on vacation, but they're also seeking out a rather unusual experience, which is a cooking class in somebody's home. And I try to make that as clear as possible. You'll come to my home, you'll meet my baby, you'll sit on my couch, we'll drink some tea,
Or sleep on the couch.
or sleep on the couch. So it's a unique experience, and generally, really positive, eager people come to me.
Yeah.
Um, I can't say that's been 100% true, but 99% I've had really positive experiences with people. And it really helps me survive this country because the Middle East can be crazy. So to be able to have conversations with people around the world and hear different perspectives is definitely refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. I This is my only bad experience. So in general, most of the people that travel are most of the people that look for that type of things, like walking tours or some sort of tours, they are more open minded and you know interested to learn. So when you say people come and you have conversations with different people from around the world, what is their expectation before they visit Israel?
So it's a mixed bag. A lot of them are a little hesitant. Their family members say, don't go, it's dangerous. And then others have just heard that it's a fun place to visit with good food and want to check it out. So the people who have some hesitation are everybody I've talked to have been very pleasantly surprised in that they feel very safe and it's a very warm and inviting culture to come to.
Okay.
But definitely it's a media hotspot. So if you seek it out, somebody will have an opinion about this country.
I think people have a lot of opinions in general for everything. Uh,
Yes.
Many like to share them in a different way. Okay, what about can we finish with some curiosities? Maybe I'll put you on the spot here, but do you know something curious of Israel, of Tel Aviv, of Jerusalem? Like this is the first thing, the first place that something very curious. Maybe something that Israel is very proud of.
God, there's so many.
Oh, tell us, tell us.
Well, that's like something that I would like need to look, but Basically, um, Israel has been challenged, its existence has been challenged since its, inception. And wars have been fought by multiple neighboring countries, sometimes at the same time. But Israel's always been able to fight them back. And sometimes it's refugees and Holocaust survivors fighting them back. But when you look at it, you can really find stories of modern day miracles where there's just one guy in a tank running back and forth, making as much noise as possible to try to keep off soldiers from a foreign enemy. Or, you know, just there's this one story in the Independence War in 1948 where we just had this one terrible cannon and it shot and it made a lot of noise and it started to rain. And because the enemies had heard about nuclear bombs, they were convinced it was that and they fled, even though it was like a cannon that couldn't have done anything. And this could for sure be Googled and told better than I'm telling you. But we consider that this modern state of Israel, especially after coming back after having to leave 2,000 years ago, is a modern day miracle. And you can see a lot of proof in that along the way, in the fact that it's still existing despite so much hardship and battles along the way.
So when let's say the government, when the government started to bring people back to Israel, like you said that they pay you the flight.
So that's a more modern organization that's not through the government, but people
Oh.
started coming back en masse because Jews have been here consistently since Abraham.
Hmm.
But in the late 1800s, people started immigrating more heavily in the early 1900s, and then of course both pre and post Holocaust, and then there was different waves of immigration where Israel sent rescue missions to Jews around the world to try to bring them. And those had different names, like the Jews from Yemen were brought in operation on a plane called Magic Carpet. And, they say that some of the Jews, they've been living in caves in Yemen. So they didn't know what a plane was. They tried to light a fire on it. Um, and the Jews in Ethiopia had come, and there's a lot of, it was hard to get them out. And their folklore, that they go to Jerusalem on the wings of eagles. Okay, and they never seen a plane, but suddenly they see this plane, and it was a fulfillment of the of the prophecy of coming to Jerusalem on the wings of eagles. So there's a lot of beautiful poetic stories in the other very difficult circumstances. But now, modern day, there are organizations that help, especially Anglo Jews from the UK and America come over, and then the government helps others. And, it's a bit of a back and forth, of course, but the difference is that some Jews from more dangerous parts of the world come here because it's a better life. And Jews from America, they have to have a reason to come here because it's a much more difficult life,
Hmm.
economically speaking and socially. So people come here for very different reasons. And it's good to remember that.
All right, cool. Well, that was very insightful. Is there anything else you would like to add? If something that you think we missed, but it's good for people to know before visiting Israel.
Um, there's a lot of artists here, so definitely keep your bags empty to buy as much crafts and jewelries and spices as you can. Um, Definitely recommend a week or more here to have the time to explore. Israel is a very bargaining friendly place, especially the old city in Jerusalem. So don't be a sucker. Always ask for a lower price. If you're nervous about the political situation, just know that 99% of the time it's overhyped by the no 100% of the time it's overhyped by the media. It's very safe here. There are some situations, which aren't great, but generally people are very helpful here, very sharing, very giving. And a lot of times it may seem like they're yelling, but really it's a friendly conversation. And most people here speak English.
Okay. What about the currency?
It's called the shekel.
So do I need to exchange money before I come?
No, we have exchange places and ATMs all over, including in the airport itself. And I've never had any bad experiences. Of course, you could, but it's fine. And the US dollar is, it's definitely accepted in some tourist areas, but better to have a shekel, and international cards here are widely accepted.
All right. So how much $1 is in or pound
A
or
US, I
euro?
have no idea on pound, but a shekel or $1 is about 3.5 shekels.
And how much is the bread? How much you're gonna spend roughly in a restaurant? For two?
Everything's expensive here. It's very, very,
Is it?
very expensive. My students are always shocked by how expensive it is. I'm actually making a video about this right now. But um, there are some cheap eats. There are a lot of free things to do. A falafel would be about 10, you could get it for 8 shekels, so maybe $2.50. And you can go to the market. So it's definitely possible to do Israel on a budget. Um, but it's like Japan level expensive.
So
But
that's
like
why people used to do a lot of hitchhiking because it's
but it's like way less put together than Japan. It's like an expensive, chaotic version.
that's a really interesting way to put it. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode and for sharing these things about Israel. It was a
Thank you for
great.
having me.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much once again, and I wish you a fantastic day.
You too.